having productive conversations, and seek inspiration from one another during the convention, I'd like to voice my utmost gratitude in being amongst all of you and serving you as a board member. This excitement we've shared over the last few days has more than strengthened my commitment to work on behalf of Native students. The first thing I'm going to do right now, and it's my pleasure to give a big thank you to all of our bronze level sponsors. Their support and donations have allowed us to organize a phenomenal convention filled with inspiring presenters, tribal leaders, educators, administrators, and students. This year's bronze level sponsors are Kamehameha School, Native Hawaiian Educational Council, Oneida Nation of Wisconsin, Stockbridge Muncie Band of Mohican Indians, Tribal College Journal of American Indian Higher Education, Bowman Performance Consulting, Menominee Nation, and from the beautiful Kesapa, the Black Hills, Crazy Horse Memorial, Natawa Sipi, Huron Band of Potawatomi, Lac de Flambeau Tribe, American Indian College Fund, the University of Arizona College of Education, and the Utah Valley University Native American Initiative. Please give our bronze level sponsors a huge round of applause. Thank you. At this time, we'll start our first drawing for the NIEA Tradeshow Passport Raffle for the 2018 Platinum Prize. We ask that our winners stand to be recognized and claim their prize by speaking with the NIEA representative in the back of the room. Where's the NIEA representative in the back of the room? In the front of the back of the room. Our first winner will receive a $500 Visa gift card. Do I draw till I pick? Do they have to be here? Yes? So I draw till somebody answers and runs screaming up here for their Visa card. I put a tape on mine so I'd make sure I found that. The winner, Berthina Nomi. Not that fast. Not here. No, Berthina? Okay. Christopher, Ria, Blue Arm. Not here. Everybody always says, pick somebody who's here. Like, yeah, right. Connie Locklear. I told you I'd draw yours, Connie. Over here. What? Oh. I was just told you have to have your tribal ID. Wow. I just found out I was related to her. It is now my honor to introduce this year's Lifetime Achievement Awardee, Joe Misty Lake Garcia. Joe Garcia is Oke Wingay and has spent his life helping his people. For over 27 years, Joe has led advocacy efforts and Native organization. He has served as governor of his pueblo, president of NCAI, chairman of the All Indian Pueblo Council, representing the 19 pueblos, and as a lifetime advocate for Native education. Joe has consulted with numerous tribes and organizations on Native education and helped to successfully negotiate the conversion of BIA education to tribal control. Joe's accomplishments transcend his passion and resume. An eloquent speaker who speaks from his heart, Joe is a true tribal leader in every sense of the phrase. NIA is proud to recognize the lifetime service of Joe Misty Lake Garcia, and his service has always provided to the Native education and Native students. Accepting on behalf of Joe, because he had to catch a flight out yesterday, and if you were at the luncheon yesterday, you got to hear some of what he was going to say today, but he had to leave last night. Accepting on behalf of Joe Garcia is Gil Vigil, Executive Director of the 8 Northern Pueblo Council and the former governor of Pueblo of Tesuque and a current tribal council member. Please join me in welcoming Gil to the stage. We have a gift for Joe, but Anawek Rose is going to present him to him, so I'm going to make off. I'm giving Gil his gift. Thank you. Forgot.
He's trying to hog the mic. He's like at least Lakotas. Let them off the reservation. They want to own the place. I can't say that to him because I'm a brother of his. I'm a Tuhanji. I'm a cousin of his because I also from the Rosebud tribe. So I claim to be Rosebud also. Sikanju, right? So anyway, thank you on behalf of Joe Garcia, my Pueblo brother. We do a lot of work together, and like his resume, he's accomplished a lot. But more importantly, he's always there for Indian people, especially the children. Doing it with all of education, all the way from Head Start, all the way up to higher ed, and everything in between. So it is gratifying to be up here to acknowledge the gift that was bestowed upon him by the National Indian Education Association for the work that he's done, for the Lifetime Achievement Award that he received. And I told him, better you than me. No, just kidding. But he is deserving of this award. And again, thank you to the president, vice president, outgoing president, incoming president. And I've been part of NIEA for quite a long time, but then I got involved with NC, National Congress of American Indians. And so usually our conference is the week before NCAI, except this year, we had a 1 week between. So I didn't get a chance to come. They won't let me out of my pueblo for 2 weeks straight in a row, so I got to choose one or the other. But I'd also be remiss if I didn't recognize Marita Hines, who is also on your board, has been on this board for quite 1 year. So, that long? And I also have our principal from our community day school, Veronica Martinez, and one of our Tewa teachers, Reyes Herrera, that are in the house also, that came with me. I'm on the school board also, and so I work with Joe, like I said. And you know what? Joe Garcia works about maybe a mile away from my office, but we don't get to see each other till we come to conferences like this or to NCAI. That's how busy we are. No. But again, thank you for honoring Joe and recognizing him for his work that he's done. And I know he'll continue to support us. So thank you on behalf of Joe Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Vigil, for your words to celebrate Joe Garcia's dedication and lifetime commitment to supporting Native students. I met Joe about 10 years or so ago, and he's always willing to sit and visit and talk about students. And that's one thing I really like about him. That was the fake present we was given. I was ahead, as always. It is now my honor to introduce Becky Pringle to share an update from the National Education Association. Becky is the Vice President of the National Education Association. She has spent her career fighting for equity as an unrelenting advocate for all students. She has 31 years of classroom experience as a middle school science teacher and a long history of fighting for educator rights at the nation's largest labor union. Becky is a tireless leader and catalyst for change. Please join me in welcoming Becky to the stage.
Good afternoon. Oh my goodness. I'm an 8th grade science teacher. You must do better. Good afternoon. That sounds so much better. Of all the civil rights for which this world has fought and died for 5,000 years, the right to learn is undoubtedly the most fundamental. The freedom to learn has been bought by bitter sacrifice. So whatever you might think about the curtailment of other civil rights, you must fight to the last ditch to keep open the right to learn. Those powerful words by W.E.B. Du Bois, I believe, are embodied in the theme of your convention this year, Building Education Nations, through culture, through creativity, through critical thought. It is my honor and my privilege to stand before you this afternoon on behalf of the 3 million members of the National Education Association and celebrate with you this your 49th convention. You are simply the best. Give yourselves a round of applause. Yeah. I always must take a moment to recognize your very courageous and passionate and inspiring leaders of this great association. We have our outgoing president, Miss Jolene. Give it up for Jolene, whose tremendous leadership and undying service to public education and the education of our Native American students has been invaluable to us at the NEA. And I know that NIEA will be in great hands because my dear friend, Robin Butterfield, will be stepping into that role. Give it up for Robin. You know she's a former NEA employee, so I got a chance to work very, very closely alongside her. And for those of you who don't know her, she is quite fierce and quite feisty. And I know that she will bring that advocacy for justice to her new role here, and already started lobbying me at lunch today. I know she's not missing a beat. She's already signing NEA up for this and that and the other, and I was like, you go, Robin, that's fine. I hear you, sister. And last, of course, but not least, I must thank your executive director, Anna Wake Rose. She is a personal friend of mine who I've gotten to know very closely as we work together on leadership opportunities. She has been a dedicated and powerful leader for this organization. And we know that she is moving on to another position where she will still continue to do great work, and we look forward to partnering with her in that. I know that she represented you so well. Just a couple of, well, always, but a couple of weeks ago, she joined over 200, 300 members of the NEA board in our state, affiliate presidents from around the country, and she inspired us. She was provocative, because that's what she does. She taught us, and she reminded us how important our relationship and our partnership is to ensure that all of our students have what they need to be successful. I also know there are some NEA members out there. Where you at? Yoo-hoo, there it is. We have some incredible leaders from NEA here. I don't know if our Alaska Native American Indian caucus chair is still in the house, but we know that, there he is, Mr. Tucker. I couldn't see you, I can't see that far, you know. But we have some incredible folks. I hope that you've gotten a chance to meet them throughout the weekend. They've been involved, some have been doing sessions, and we are so incredibly thankful for the work they do in ensuring that we do what we must do at the NEA to lift up the cultures and languages and history of our Native American communities and students. We at the NEA are supporting the work and the partnership with you, most especially through our Center for Social Justice, specifically our Community Advocacy and Partnership Engagement Department. For those of you who haven't met Adelta, I don't know where she's running around somewhere. Here she is. I know, she's fabulous. And Merwin, Merwin Scott, our director, was here earlier. We have done some incredible partnerships work together as we took a look at how we address the professional development of those men and women who are in front of our students. Because we know that we have more to do first to prepare them, right, Margaret? Where are you? We're gonna work on that. She already, there's you. We're gonna work on that, right? But also for those who are already in the classroom, and so we have partnered with you in those professional development opportunities. We also we're very, very fortunate to have your leadership and your guidance as we specifically developed Native lesson plans in partnership with you that provided us with a really, really strong strategic roadmap as our members worked really hard to address the issues that face our Native American students and our parents and the communities. And then lastly, you know, we have joined forces on the policy front, trying to make sure that we remind our legislators, or at the very least hold them accountable, so that they are supporting the access and opportunities of our Native youth, whether they live in large cities or on reservations or in isolated rural areas. They have just as much right to a quality education as those of our students who live in those affluent areas, and we are working together to hold those folks who are in positions of power accountable to do just that. You know, as I stand before you, and we had some conversations at lunch about this, I know, like me, many of your hearts are breaking for our world and for our country, for our families and for our children. We harbor no illusion that our fight for social justice was over. We knew that it wasn't. But to have to face the reality that someone that openly and without shame embodies hate and misogyny and racism and xenophobia from the highest office in the land has given permission for others to further marginalize communities like ours is disheartening. But here's the thing. The view of our world has shifted, but our reality, it really hasn't. We know that this country still suffers from institutionalized racism, and we know that our students suffer because of the color of their skin, and they're impacted in their schools and throughout this country. We are still grappling with the sins of a homeland stolen and slavery and internment. But I will tell you that we at the NEA are really leaning into and embracing the preamble of our mission. We, the members of the National Education of the Association of the United States of America, are the voice of education professionals. Our work is fundamental to this nation, and we accept the profound trust that has been placed in us. And so we will not rest until every single student has what they need to be successful. We will stand in the gaps for our children when the Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights refuses to protect their most basic human and civil rights and threaten to diminish resources that are specifically targeted for our Native students and communities. We will not rest. Now, I know that this is not something we can do by ourselves. That's why I'm here, to ask for your continued partnership. And I'm asking for your continued enthusiasm and energy and activism on behalf of our students. I'm asking you to go out and vote and get everyone who loves you and lives with you and plans to keep being around you to vote too, for our students and for our communities and for health care and for safety. I need you to do that 24 days, folks. Now, I know I'm asking a lot of you, right? I understand you have full-time jobs every day. And this is your volunteer job, I understand. So I'm going to leave you with these 3 words. Keep plugging away. Those are the words from a poem I had to recite when I was growing up in North Philly. I went to a small Baptist church, and the tradition of the church was for the children of the church to say pieces. Mother's Day pieces, Easter pieces, Christmas, always with the pieces. Well, I came from a large family. My father had 8 sisters. All of them, they thought they were my mother. Every time they came into our house, they said, "Becky Sue, get up on the landing and say your piece." By the time the day came for me to say my piece, I was sick of it. They called me to the front of the church, and much to the congregation's surprise and my family's horror, my knees began to buckle, and I bolted from the church. When my father came out after me, I need to tell you that he's from the spare the rod, spoil the child generation. Do you know what I mean? Can I get a witness? Yeah. So when I saw him behind me, I was more than a little bit afraid. But noticing my obvious dejection, he put his arms around me and he said, "Rebecca." That's what he called me when he was really mad or very serious, as he said, "Rebecca, look up at the sky. The sun is still shining, and it will rise again tomorrow." With those encouraging words, I went back into the church and I said my piece, the beginning words of which I remember to this day. When rising storms to quell, when opposing waters swell, keep a plugging away. If the hills are hard to climb and the paths are far ahead, keep a plugging away. So NEIA, those are my words that I will leave with you today. You keep plugging away. When those around you devalue your children's worth, you keep plugging away. When this country refuses to recognize your sovereign rights, you keep plugging away. When all of society's ills and precious few of its resources are laid at the door of your communities, you keep plugging away because our children, our babies, are depending on us to be worthy of them. Thank you so very much for all you do for our children and for your communities and for each other. You keep plugging away.
Stay right here. Thank you, Becky, for that. I was going to say wonderful, but that was an awesome update. Thank you for NIEA and their partnership with us. Accept this small token from us.
Thank you.
To calm down. Get all worked up here. That was awesome. Oh, okay. Please welcome Jolene Bowman to the stage.
Thank you, Chris. It is now my pleasure to draw the gold, silver, and bronze prize winners for the NIEA Trade Show Passport Contest. As a reminder to the winners, please stand and head to our NIEA staff representative here up at the front to claim your prize. The 2018 gold prize winner who will receive one NIEA premium level membership is... Where's my drum roll audience? Woo-hoo! Jennifer LaPointe from Michigan, Department of Ed. We'll continue on. We have Terry Chapman, Michigan Department of Ed. They must have had theirs together. They must have been in the marathon this morning. Deanna Urbanik. Woohoo, come on up, come on up. So Deanna is the 2018 Gold Prize winner who will receive one NIEA premium level membership. Our Silver Prize winner who will receive one complimentary gala banquet ticket to the 50th Annual Convention and Trade Show next year in Minneapolis, Minnesota is Louise Z. Do you know who you are already? No. I'm having a hard time reading the last name. AEPI, I don't know what that, J-O? It doesn't say where they're from. A number? The passport ID number is 0689. Hearing no passport number 0689, we'll go on to the second bingo. Oh, we got a bingo back there. Come on up. Louise? Lois, sorry. Right up. Louise, oh. Oh yeah, that it is. I was just giving you that fancy twist on that, Lois. Now we will select 5 bronze prize winners who will receive complimentary NIA basic level membership. Our first prize, our bronze level winner is Darlene Smith. Is Darlene here? Darlene Smith. Nope, not seeing Darlene's hand up. M.A., I think is a T.O. Thompson. Elite? No, it ain't. Is that, it says M.T.O. M.A.T.O. Just kidding. Okay, we're gonna dig down deep. Pardon me? What was the passport number? Oh, great. Darlene Smith. Yeah, the passport number is 0990. No passport number for 0990. Can you collect these? Thank you. Yeah. Is somebody keeping track of what number we're in? Randy Sunray. Woohoo! Come on up, Randy. So was that 2 of the 5? All right, thank you for keeping me honest. So the 3rd of the 5 is Barbara T. Abrams. Number 4 is Petra Wilson. No? Gilbert Ryer? Gilbert? The number is 0076. Okay, thanks. This is just a first name and a last initial. Mark J, number 0759. Passport number 0759. Katie Holland, Siletz. Congratulations, Katie, that you're in our number 4. We have one more bronze level winner, and that is Diane Yellowrobe, Inez Pierce. Oh, we have one more. So I guess we had 6. There's 5. Well, someone had my numbers wrong. Let's see, this, Schwell Hendrickson. The number is 0108. Going once, going twice. Okay, so this last one, you have to yell bingo. If you're here and you're a winner. Edward Ventura. Is not here? Oh, no bingo for Edward, no. This is what happens when we're filling it in. What is that called? Blackout. Sherry Hale. Is Sherry Hale in the audience? Paula Morelos. Woohoo, bingo! Aloha. Well, at our opening ceremony, Robin led us in showing our appreciation for NIEA's outgoing executive director, Anawake Rose. Now let me introduce the interim executive director, a leader inside our organization for many years, Diana Conoyer. Diana is our program director and most recently led our team as we plan state advocacy launches and technical assistant trainings. Her primary focus is to work closely with Native communities, organizations, and researchers to provide support for community and academic partnerships that affect local and national policy. She is a member of the Oglala Sioux tribe. I'm confident that NIEA will continue to grow and flourish under Diana's leadership. Please welcome Interim Executive Director Diana Conoyer and our current board members to the stage. Is Diana here? So Diana's probably not here. We'll have to recognize her. She's here. Yes. That's okay. 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 Bingo is now closed. So do you want us to wait to see if they can get her here? Okay, Anishi.
When she walks in, I'll announce her and everybody can cheer. I'd like to introduce our Saturday. There she is, Diana. Okay, now I'd like to introduce our Saturday keynote speaker, Mr. Sterling Harjo. He's a citizen of the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma, a Muskogee Cree descendant from Holdenville, Oklahoma. When I was I did an interview, they had a bunch of us doing interviews with Ryan Redcorn this morning. And I told him I was going to introduce Sterling, and he said, let me write his resume for him. He said, tell everybody that his closest friends call him Sterling. But I won't do that. I was wondering why Ryan came in and headed out. Sterling Harjo is a celebrated native film director. He was honored with fellowships from the Sundance Institute and United States Artists Foundation, and awards from the Aspen Short Fest and the American Indian Film Festival. His films include Goodnight Irene, Four Sheets to the Wind. Gee, that sounds like one of the first NIEAs. This May Be the Last Time, and Mako. Sterling serves as the staff video director of This Land Press in Tulsa and is a director of Cherokee Nation's monthly television news magazine. He also co-founded Fire Thief Productions, a Native American production company. He attended the University of Oklahoma, where he studied art and film. Please join me in welcoming Sterling Harjo to the NIEA stage.
Thank you. Man, that was a scabby bio right there. I'm not gonna lie. That was like pieced together. I think Ryan did write that, because that was like pieced together from the first bio I ever put out. But it was good. Thank you very much. The first NIEA, 4 Sheets to Win. Good one. Kind of threw me off, you know. I had to follow this speaker right here. Like, I even wrote down your phrase just in case I lose everybody. I'm gonna start saying, "Keep plugging away." Woo! As soon as I hear some silence, keep plugging away. I'm usually pretty good at this, but when you follow someone with that much passion, I feel like she really threw me under the bus. They asked me to, warn everyone. This is a conference, and they asked if I could say this to you all. It's a conference, and there's a certain amount of snagging that goes on at conferences. And I'm just here to warn you elders, it's a new day out there. You got to be careful. There's this thing called Snapchat. I don't know if you know what that is. But it's not just like having a VHS camera. It's like these videos go straight online, and everyone can see them. So just be careful. No one wants to see that. Be careful. I was going to play theme music when I walked up, but I got thrown off. Is this TV work where I could see this, or I'm going to have to peek around the whole time? Is that? Got to peek. All right. So, like they said, I'm a filmmaker. I'm Muskogee Creek and Seminole. If you're videotaping me, I just want to say I'm gonna be saying some things that I can't announce publicly as far as projects go, so please don't share them. Or just don't videotape me and enjoy the moment. We gotta do that more. We gotta enjoy the moment more. So I'm from rural Oklahoma, and I am a product of rural Oklahoma public schools. Statistically, I should not be on this stage, and I'm very proud to be here, and I'm very honored that you asked me to be here. A lot of my friends are in jail or cops. It's like one or the other, so I'm not sure which is better, but I didn't go down that road, and I'm really proud of that. Holdenville, Oklahoma, that's probably the most fancy building in my town right there. It's falling apart. But, I'm really proud of this place, and I saw it just deteriorate when I was young. Like, from the age of when I was young till now, it just disappeared, Like, you got factory farming, you got Walmart, you got privatized prisons, and they all come in, and they just do a number on these rural communities. And so you saw the love, and you saw the light in this place disappear. But I love it. My dad actually, if you were to stand on the corner and look across the street, my dad is a martial arts instructor, and he's had a martial arts school since I was 4 years old And there's about half Native kids that go to that school. And my dad's never made money doing that, but it's something that he's passionate about. And I think my mom's worked for the tribe, Bureau of Indian Affairs, and seeing people that were just passionate about their work really made me who I am, And I remember my mom, I used to hate this when I was young. She was the one that would take me into like any Native event or doings, and I was the kid that had to shake every elder's hand. I was like, there's always that one kid that has to shake everyone's hand, and my mom was always like, they're all your cousins. Like, I don't even know how many cousins I had. Like, everyone was apparently my cousin. And I hated it when I was a kid having to do that. But as I got older, I'm so glad she did that to me because I know all of them, and they know all me. They all know me. And a lot of them are gone, and I learned so much from doing that. So it's one of those things that you do and you have to do when you're young, and then you realize later that it was really good, and it helped sort of form who you are. My parents, Southern country hippies, look at that. You don't get that outside of Oklahoma. That is an Oklahoma Indian thing right there. You that could be the Oklahoma flag, just that picture. Coming from Oklahoma, it was a strange thing. I'm half white, and I grew up mainly with my native side. But I feel like you can trace the history of our people through my lineage because, I have an Italian grandpa, and my great aunts and uncles and my grandma were sent on the Relocation Act to Chicago to work in factories in Chicago. And luckily, they sort of said, screw this, let's go home. And so they came back home to rural Oklahoma. But on the way, my grandma fell in love with an Italian man in Chicago. Guy born in New York City, grew up in Chicago. He was in a street gang. And she met him one time at the park. And it was him and his little street gang, and they were hanging out. And there was a crazy woman preaching from a pulpit, like a fake cement rise in this park. And she met my grandpa because while this woman was preaching and talking about the Lamb of God and all this stuff, him and his street gang were around the corner. And every time she would say Lamb of God, they'd go, bah. And that's how she met my Italian grandpa. And I guess she was like, I like him, I'm taking him home, And so she kidnapped this Italian man and brought him to rural Oklahoma, where he just worked in rural Oklahoma and had a vegetable garden. And he loved it. He loved it, He kind of got, the first time he got there, though, they pulled him over. The cops pulled him over, these country cops. And he had, chinos on and, tucked in kind of Italian gangster-looking clothes, And they pulled over, and they were like, where are you from? He's like, Chicago. And they're like, you better not dress like that anymore. And so after that, he was, blue jeans and, plaid shirts, He's just all right, I'm changing. I became a filmmaker, but it took so long for me to, I didn't have the education. It's a weird thing when you grow up in a community and you don't know who you are. I didn't think that was possible, and I didn't know who I was growing up. I didn't know who my people were. I knew who we were. I knew I could say I'm Seminole and Creek. I knew we were Native. I was proud of that. I knew how to interact. I knew that we were good storytellers. I knew that we had something different than other people had. I knew that we had this history called the Trail of Tears. I knew that my grandma told stories about her grandma and how babies would be murdered, and she smothered her baby because they were being too loud and the soldiers would kill them. And so I heard all this stuff, but I couldn't contextualize any of it because I didn't know what it was. And I went to college. It wasn't until I went to college and I had to go to college and hear a white professor tell me about who I am and where I'm from. And because in schools in Oklahoma, and it's sort of changing right now, but we don't have in our history books, that's Indian country. That should be the history books. Our history there should be the history because that's what it is. But it's not in any books. There's a paragraph. They use the national books, And so I never knew who I was. I never knew what it meant to be Muskogee Creek or Seminole until I left for college. And I had to have that experience to really appreciate who I was. And then I started telling stories about where I was from. Creek and Seminole Trail of Tears, you've seen that. And through the work that I started doing, I began to think storytelling and stuff, and I began to think critically about how we're portrayed. And you have all these people that talk about mascots and things like that. But it was so abstract to me. I didn't know what it meant. I was like, man, there's not some dude like twitching his mustache trying to like hurt us because he got this mascot. It's just a football team. Like, that's kind of my mentality when I was young. And I think it is a lot of our people, especially our young people. But after I started seeing the power of what imagery does, I was an artist. I always wanted to be an artist. I didn't even know filmmaking was an option when I was in rural Oklahoma. And I wanted to be an artist. And so I started thinking more about like how imagery affects people. And like, I've had the experience of making a film where I was able to put my language in a film and have my people watch that film and hear their language in a film that I made, or songs that it sang. And no one's ever done that before. Like, that's crazy, right? Like, and so I've been able to, like, whether it's Native people all over the country or my own people, like, being able to go and seeing people's faces when they recognize themselves on screen is such a powerful thing. It's like telling our own stories and having people, being able to, like, show people. It's like holding a mirror up to people, and you start analyzing yourself. And you see, or say you're a kid and you never heard your songs on anywhere but a funeral, But then all of a sudden you see a movie and you hear a song that you grew up with, and then you start feeling like that song's special. And why is it special? Because it comes from your people. Why is it? Who are your people? They are the language, and it's just like this whole thing that I started realizing. And then I realized that all this stuff, this mascots and all of that, it's not the problem. It is part of the problem. It's a symptom of a bigger problem, which was to eradicate us as people and make us look like we weren't human, so you could commit murder against us, so you could wipe us out, so you could commit rape and not feel bad about it. And it was a thing that was passed down through our histories. And then I realized, no, this is really important. This is sort of the byproduct of all that stuff. This is what was left over. It represents something way darker. And that's why imagery is important. And it took a long time. I mean, like, you could Google Native right now and you're going to get some. I mean, like, when I was young, when I was young, I thought it was Lakota. Like, I thought that's how we dressed. I remember the first time I saw a film, it was called The Seminole Wars. And it was like a Western. And my dad called me in there and was like, hey, this is about us. So I'm in there and I was like, dang, they don't look like us. But we were still proud, It's like we all dressed like Lakotas and we were speaking like Cheyenne or something, but we were still proud, And so at first I didn't know what we were really, but now I look at images like that and that's beautiful to me. That's so unique and it's so beautiful. That's my family in early 1900s. Obviously that's where I got my love of hats from. Like, I think every one of them has a hat on. And so this journey of like being educated about who I was led me back to my own stories and my own people. And I wanted to really tell those stories because no one had done it before. And we can't let non-natives do that forever. Like, we can't let other people tell our stories. We have to tell those stories. I have no idea why I put this in there. But my dad was a hard worker. He's still around, and he worked construction my whole life. And you know what? Growing up with a dad who was an amazing artist, he's an amazing artist, drawer. Growing up with him, and him always saying he wished he would have pursued it, made me have this sort of blind abandon just to like dive off cliffs. And I never had a backup plan. I always said, I'm going to I'm going to be an artist. That's what I'm going to do. I never had a backup plan. And because of that, I never backed up. Like I never had a chance to not succeed. I had an artist teacher as well. And this is how important teachers are. Like, I had this teacher and he said, don't ever have a fallback plan. He said, because you'll fall back. And he's like, that's what I did. And so I just like, for better or for worse, I was like, I'm going to keep going and that's what I'm going to do. And I attribute that to all my family and as a filmmaker, I mean, like every one of us here could be a filmmaker because we all have different stories and we all come from such a storytelling culture. All of you do. I just choose to tell it on camera, and it's a natural way for me to tell our stories. And I think that, in a time when we don't have enough representation, I try to fill that void. Because you know what? If we take away all of the Chief Wahoo, thank God, if we take away all of these mascots and this imagery, that void is still there. There's an emptiness there. So we need artists, we need graphic designers, we need Ryan Redcorn, we need filmmakers, we need people to fill that void, or our kids aren't going to have anything to go towards. They're going to go to other cultures. They're going to go to cultures that aren't their own and try to adopt those. So we have to fill them with imagery and stories and media for them to gravitate towards. And that's when I had a perm. I was a big Michael Jackson fan. My mom was a hairdresser. And she convinced me that she could perm my hair and I would look like Michael Jackson. I even had like Michael Jackson's zipper coat, and my great aunt, she made a glove. She glued sequins all over this glove, so I had his glove as well. And then after that, she sprayed sun into my hair. And look at that, real traditional like Southwest painting up there in that corner. Looked like some Pueblo artist did that. Probably bought it at some, I don't know, Hobby Lobby. But Michael Jackson look did not work out, and I did not become a dancer. But I could tell stories. And Michael Jackson inspired me the first. I never knew people made films until Michael Jackson, because I watched The Making of Thriller. And it was like one of the first VHS tapes I had, The Making of Thriller. And it was like, what? They made this? Like there were people behind the scenes creating that monster and having him change and like all of that stuff. It was the first time I realized that people made films. And so in a roundabout way, Michael Jackson got me here. I started wanting to make movies. I went to the Sundance Writers Lab and Directors Lab, and I think I was just country enough that I was naive enough that I didn't realize I couldn't do it. And there is something special about that. It's like whenever I work with youth a lot. I try to make them feel like anything's possible. I really have a negative view on people that go to reservations or native communities and tell kids how to live. Tell them they shouldn't be doing something. You don't live like this. You don't drink. You don't do this stuff. You don't do that. You don't do this. If you come into my community and said that when I was young, I would have not listened to you and I would have left. You have to inspire them. You have to give them the tools. It's like walking into a room and laying something down and hoping that they pick that up and use it, because that's what they're going to fill any emptiness with. No one wants to be talked down to. People want to be inspired. And something about the way that I was raised made me fearless in moving forward with art. And I had a lot of Native friends and family that were really scared to put their work out there because they'll be criticized. Really scared to speak up. I played football. There was an amazing fullback that played with us all my junior high year. He was really afraid to step up. He should have been starting. He should have been gone to college. But the white coaches let him disappear in the background of this crowd. And he didn't have the strength to really, or he didn't have it's not strength. He didn't have the wherewithal to just step up and say, I deserve to be on that field because I'm the best. And I think about him a lot because he's a good guy. And for some reason, I don't know if it was my parents or what, but it's probably my grandpa just abandoning Chicago and going to rural Oklahoma and not caring. Something gave me the ability to not care how I'm perceived and just to move forward and keep moving ahead. As I am where I'm at right now, I've made 4 feature-length films. You can find all of them on Amazon.com. There's a documentary that I made called This May Be the Last Time. There's a film called 4 Sheets to the Wind. There's a film called Barking Water. And then there's a film called Miko. And Miko's about to come out soon. Everybody asked me about that one. But, I just made these films in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I'm from. And the idea was to tell stories that no one else would ever tell. It's like the movies that I make, no one else would ever tell, and that makes me really happy that I'm the only one that would do that, and they wouldn't exist without me. Started an organization called Fire Thief Productions. We do OCO TV, which is like the first documentary TV show about a tribe. It's for the Cherokee Nation. It's OCO TV, Voices of the Cherokee People. The idea is just to tell stories about people and make us more real. So there are young Cherokee boys and girls in rural Oklahoma. They get to turn the TV on and see stories about the people that come from their tribe, and they're able to take pride in that, you know. And this is regional. It goes all over. It's on FNX, so it's national. But it gives them an opportunity to connect with people in their community that are doing things. It's all about storytelling, you know, like you inspire young people when they hear stories about other people doing things. And so that's what this show is about. I'm producing a documentary about food sovereignty, and it's about how all of our food can kind of be connected to the oppression that we have felt from our government, and how our foods, you know, if you go back to the sources and our food ways, we were really healthy people. We didn't have to fight things like diabetes. We knew how to eat. We knew how to live with the land. And this documentary is kind of about the push in Indian country to go back towards that way of life. So I get to do cool things like cut up sturgeon. And it's funny because anywhere I go, like, I just kind of like give myself over to that community. It's like if I go somewhere and there's an auntie there and she's just like, I need your help cutting up this sturgeon. I'm like, all right, like, like I'll let them film stuff, but like I just like end up usually with a knife cutting something up. I'm one of the founders of the 1491s. Young people, if you don't know who they are, we are, your kids do. For better or for worse. But you know what was crazy is like when we started that, I just knew that there was no, we talked a lot about this. It was like there's no, like we're the funniest people. I think Native people are the funniest people on earth. And there was no place to go and watch that humor. There was no place to go to say, man, like I want to laugh like we do back home, you know? And I think the more I traveled, the more I got outside of my community and my family, I missed that humor. And so we made a video called the New Moon Wolfpack Auditions. And it got popular, but at first I didn't know how popular it was gonna get, but I knew it was a big deal when I got a photo. A friend of mine named Thosh Collins gave me a photo from a conference just like this, and there were like 3 elders sitting around a laptop, cracking up, watching our video. And after that, I was like, man, like, because I only thought young people would like it. But once elders started liking it, and like I saw how much they liked it, and they could go and laugh at this stuff, because we got dirty humor as well, you know? Like, we don't have the most PC humor on earth, I don't believe. I mean, I remember like, my grandma was the dirtiest. Like, I remember she was about to go in to have heart surgery, and my uncle came in to give her a hug, and she said to him as he gave her a hug, you know, he's kind of a little bit rugged, you know, like, and that uncle, you know, and he came in to give her a hug, and she said, don't be so hozak. And like, in my language, that means horny, and like, she's about to get heart surgery. She's about to get heart surgery, and so like, we all cracked up, like, why would you bring that up right now? Like we're all sad thinking might not make it, you know, like crazy. So that's what 1491s represents to me, is like, it's Native humor. And I like, we're starting to get paid more for that right now, but like, we did it for free for a long time. And it was just like, because we were our own boss, we just put it out there for free for Native people to see, and that was pretty amazing. And we've traveled the world with that organization now, and now we're writing a play. Got commissioned to write a play for the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. It's called Between Two Knees, and it's going to be playing next year for a year at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival in Ashland, Oregon. It's a multi-generational, multi-tribal love story, comedy, musical that takes place from the massacre at Wounded Knee in the 1800s to the armed takeover at Wounded Knee in 1977, hence Between Two Knees. That's some good-looking mofos right there. I don't know what that... Jack White, I made a commercial with Jack White recently. I'm just showing off at this point. Robert Redford, I don't know if you ever heard of him, but... And that's my buddy Taika Waititi, who's also an indigenous filmmaker, made films. We came up together making films. He just made the new Thor, which you all probably saw, Thor Ragnarok. Amazing native Maori brother from New Zealand. I have a podcast. It's just another thing that I do to try to fill that void of storytelling and trying to just get ideas out there. Because, like, you know what? As Native people, we've lied a lot about ourselves. And the reason we've done that is because white people like to pay us for it. And so, as a culture, we have fed into that mystical BS that a lot of non-natives like to put us in. And some of our people kind of fall into that a little bit too much, but we got to pull it back because we are real people. And we have to remember that we're real people, and our stories have to be about us being real people. We are mystical, but not all the time, you know? So we need to pull it back a little bit and tell real stories, even if they hurt us. Even if it hurts to tell the truth about yourself, truth is healing. And we got to be able to tell stories without being afraid to tell those stories. I do. Louise Erdrich, Joy Harjo, Samantha Crane, all these people are on my podcast. Please check it out if you haven't. I've seen change, obvious. Jim Thorpe. So I'll tell you this quick story. I don't know how much time I have, probably already passed, but y'all's on Indian time anyway. So I got a flight to catch after this as well. But Jim Thorpe, so what happened after Standing Rock is all of a sudden Indians got cool again. And I started getting phone calls from non-natives. My phone was like blowing up, you know, like, or emails, and they're like, hey, want you to be a producer on our native film, where it's really important for us to work with a native, blah, blah, blah. And they just want you to basically sign off on their project, you know. And so, you know, at first it's kind of flattering, but then after a while you're like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to like justify your native film, and you're just going to put my name on it. So I started saying, like, the writers of this film called me, non-natives, they called me and they said, hey, we'd love you to be a producer on our project. I knew it was coming as soon as I got the phone call. But I said, you know what, I'm not a producer. I'm a writer and a director, though. So if you need anything like that, let me know. And they said, oh, well, yeah, we'll probably get a big name writer, director to write it. And I was like, I'm not interested in being a producer. And so then they said, would you read the script and give us notes? And I said, yes, I'll do that. So I read the script, didn't like it. It was awful. Don't tell them that. But they're still producers on it. So, but I was really honest with them, and I said, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you the truth. Like, there was a scene, honestly, where Jim Thorpe was standing outside of a teepee with Medicine Man, and they were looking at stars, and the Medicine Man said, you see all those stars out there? This is what I'm talking about us kind of this mystical shit that lies. Like, don't fall into that shit. And so he's like, oh, look at those stars out there. Our Sac and Fox people were that many in number before the white man came. And it's like, and I told them, I said, man, that is straight out of, like, Lion King. Like, Mufasa said that to Simba. And so I basically shamed them so much that they gave me a job. That a couple days later, they said, will you rewrite this script? And I said, hell yeah. And it's like, you get one opportunity to write Jim Thorpe's story. And they just wanted me to do a polish, but I was like, I'm going for it. I'm rewriting this whole thing. So that's what I did. Because I grew up 30 minutes from the woods that Jim Thorpe grew up running in, you know. And I remember my dad gave me a book about him when I was probably about 12, something like that. And I was so drawn to him. And part of his story that I loved the most was when he would run away from boarding school to go home. And it was like, home was so important to him that he would run away and run miles and miles and miles home just to be there, to be in his woods, to hunt his food. And in a way, I feel like that's what our native story is, you know. We run miles and miles and miles and try to get back home. And all my films are about home and our relationship with home, whether it's leaving that home or coming back to that home. And so it always struck me as like this beautiful thing in his story. So I read his book. I knew all about him. So getting the opportunity and seeing this script that tried to put beads and feathers on Jim Thorpe, you don't have to do that to Jim Thorpe. Jim Thorpe's Indian, right? He don't have to have a headdress on to be Jim Thorpe. He's Indian. He's about survival. His story is about survival. His story is about going to boarding school and trying to get out of that boarding school and losing a brother in that boarding school and becoming the best athlete in the world. You don't have to try to change that story. That is an amazing story. And so that's what I did, is I took it back to the real story and tried to like just picture myself as a young Oklahoma kid and what that would feel like and what he was going through. And I did a smart thing. I sent it to those producers. But as I was writing it, Angelina Jolie signed on as a producer as well. And so I also sent it to her. And she loved it and kept me on to write the next draft. And I'm supposed to write another draft now. So, you know, Holdenville, Oklahoma, rural Oklahoma, eating in Angelina Jolie's house. Her helper cooked me like the most amazing Italian food. And talking to her about Jim Thorpe, that was an amazing thing. And like her liking a script that I wrote. One of the things she said was, this movie's not a success unless we get his body back to Oklahoma, because his body was robbed and taken up north. So pretty amazing. There they are. No one knows about this. Turn your phones off. I just finished a deal with HBO. I'm developing and creating a TV series based on this book. There, written by Tommy Orange. I love this book. It's dark, but like I said, we got to tell the dark stuff too, and we have to talk about what systematic racism and trauma did to us and how we overcome that. And it's not about our relationship with white people. It's not about white people being bad guys. It's not about Yellowstone where it's Indians versus cowboys all over again. It's about our own shit, and it's about us trying to heal ourselves. And yeah, people caused that, and a government caused that, and issues caused that, but it's our problem now, and we have to be able to heal ourselves and fix that. And that's what I think this book's about, and that's what I want to try to do. So, very excited. HBO. Handling misinformation. One of the reasons I'm successful in film is because, I hear the stupidest stuff from people, right? You're a native, you're trying to make movies. Like, that's one of the worst places of native representation is Hollywood. So imagine the things that I hear. I hear the worst, but they're ignorant. They just don't know. And most people are good people and willing to learn if you don't get mad at them and tell them they're dumb, which I want to sometimes. But I worked on a show called Scalped. I came in, and you have to try and work. These shows are getting made, so I came in and tried to make it all come from reality and what life is really like. So it's like you can either work with people and influence people and show them that they need us as Native people to work in these spaces, or you can just ignore it and run away. And I choose to try to work with people and be open-minded about their ignorance as well. And it's really helped me, I think, in what I do. Obviously, you all know this. You're educators. This was for people that don't know this the first time I did it. But those are my kids. And, I try and do things with that in mind. It's like, our young people are so important, and I think that we have to be patient with them and understand. I remember I was on a panel one time real quick, and everyone was mad because all their students were, I was at Bacone actually, which we're trying to make Bacone a new Indian art school. So heck yeah, right there. And I was at this panel one time, and all the Native teachers were mad. They were griping about, our Indian kids don't protest. We used to make films about mascots and protest and the issues and blah, 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 and they don't care, And I just had to take up for them, because I was like, your generation fought for the younger generation. You guys fought a lot for the freedom that they have, and you have to let them be free to go make stupid stuff. You gotta let them be free to go make zombie movies and to go make whatever they want to make, because you know what? If you give them the freedom to do that, they're going to come back to your community, and they're going to come back and they're going to do good work. So that's what I want to leave you with, and that's what I encourage you to do. And thank you very much for having me. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Sterling, for that.
Am I standing next to you? Or?
Yeah.
Oh.
Stay here.
He just want me to look at you?
Yeah, I have to read this.
Oh.
Thank you for sharing your creative vision and your cultural inspiration. Please accept this small gift on our behalf for being here.
Thank you. Maru. Oh. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Oh, thank you.
At this time, I'd like to introduce the Secretary of the Board, Margaret Landon, to announce the election results. Margaret is an enrolled member of the Mandan Hidatsa Arikara Nation and is of Assiniboine descent. She's a senior at Nuweta Hidatsa Sanish College. She is the Sanish Language and Culture Coordinator for her nation. Please join me in welcoming Margaret to the stage.
All right, it's time to get back to business. Thank you, Chris. And thanks to everyone who voted this year. I am excited to share the election results with you today. The slide on the screen, is it on there? Okay, presents our election results. Our 3 open general board member seats will be filled by Brian Jackson, Sylvia Hussey, and Lori Quigley. Thank you all. Congratulations. Our 1 student board member seat will remain vacant as we did not have any students run this convention. NIEA will be posting information soon on getting this position filled, so keep your eyes open, please. Our membership also voted on critical updates to our Constitution and bylaws. On the adoption of key revision to the NIEA Constitution and bylaws, that has passed. On modifying and the representation of the NIEA Board of Directors, that has passed. Next, the resolutions that were voted on this year. Number 1, urge Congress to increase appropriations for tribal education departments and agencies. That passed. Number 2, protecting Native students from harmful cuts to federal student aid. That has passed. Thank you. Number 3, in support of affirmative action policies and against the withdrawal of guidance on affirmative action. That has passed. Number 4, in support of improved child nutrition programs and services for Native students. That has passed. Number 5, condemning the family separation at the U.S.-Mexico border and urging immediate reunification. That has passed. So thank you all for voting. Again, please get out there and vote when you get back home. Rock the Native Vote 2018. And then I guess we received 2 emergency resolutions. Chris Bardot, where are you at? Our legislative committee chair will now lead us through this process. Thank you. Nawa.
Thank you, Margaret. I was really looking for a gift to give her. Thank you. Hard copies of the resolutions were available as you entered the General Assembly. You can see the text on the screen. We will now consider and vote on these resolutions orally. There are 2 microphones in the center aisles for anyone who wishes to speak to these resolutions. We will put forward these 2 resolutions now for consideration and oral vote by the membership. Our first emergency resolution, 2018 E01, is titled, In Support of Financial Aid Data Sharing for Tribes and Tribal Organizations. In January 2017, the Department of Education released guidance that prohibited tribes and tribal organizations from assessing student financial aid data for the purpose of scholarships and tribal data sharing. Congress has passed temporary language to allow tribal access to the 2018 and 2019 appropriations. Currently, Congress is considering reauthorization of the Higher Education Act, which addresses issues of student financial aid and data transparency. This resolution resolves that the National Indian Education Association shall advocate for the inclusion of language allowing tribes and tribal organizations to be recipients of FAFSA data in any Higher Education Act reauthorization. The NIEA board recommends passing of Emergency Resolution 2018 E01. Is there anyone to speak to that?
I have, so my name is Derek Leslie. I am the Higher Education Coordinator for the White Mountain Apache Tribe from White River, Arizona. And this resolution is really gonna help not a lot, but all of the higher education departments within your tribes, and it's important when filling out the financial needs analysis that our students will have to submit as part of their scholarship application. And so a while back there was sort of a stymie in that process, and so this urges and implores NIEA to be proactive in the process moving forward and ensuring that our tribal scholars are able to have their information shared with the tribes as part of their scholarship application. So I really hope you consider and vote in favor. Thank you.
Moved by, what was your name again? Make sure we get your name. Derek Weston. Second by, what was your name? Robin Butterfield. All in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose, nay. Abstain, not voting. Motion carried, motion passed. Thank you. Our second emergency resolution titled, "In support of Bureau of Indian Education contracts and funding for tribal schools in Alaska." In 1985, the Bureau of Indian Education pulled out of Alaska due to lack of congressional funding for schools that serve Native students. This resolution revolves that the United States of America, Department of the Interior, Bureau of Indian Education restore funding for the indigenous students in Alaska to provide quality education in formal partnerships between the federal, state, and tribal governments, and the United States Congress through a Restoration Act fulfill this trust obligation to adequately fund each school in Alaska, to improve and be effective once again to make sure each child succeed in its educational endeavors. NIEA passed a previous resolution in 2014-18, which supports BIA funding for all American Indians and Alaskan Native tribes. The NIA board has recommended that the membership move to table this emergency resolution under consideration because it's duplicative of a past resolution. Any motion? Margaret Landon moved to table. Second by,
Can a comment be made, please?
we have time for discussion. Anyone want to address?
Thank you very much. My name is Ivan M. Ivan, Tribal Chief, Akiak Native Community, Southwest Alaska. This resolution before you, and we thank you for considering this resolution. After the 93-638 law passed, we had very much hope to govern ourselves, especially in the area of education. We contracted a BIA school in Akiak, and as we submitted our resolution to Secretary of Interior, the area director from Juneau came to our community and told us he put a padlock on the door and said, "We have nothing to offer." But then we were able to contact our able attorney in New York who drove to Washington, D.C. Commissioner's office. In their meeting, he conveyed our information, and the commissioners of BIA called the area director to go up to our Akiak, open a padlock, and offer us a contract. The tribal council is so thankful for that. We're the school board members, and we wanted local control. With that, we would be able to teach our children for 2 years. And it was successful. We had nothing. And following that, one senator in the Appropriations Committee put a rider and cut the funding to all Alaska tribes, 229 tribes. This had a very bad impact. And he told us that we need to be given to state of Alaska that had oil revenue to provide funding for us. It was under state control. So our 3 villages, my tribal leaders, got together and negotiated with state legislature and were able to pass, have a good sponsor from one of the good senators, John Sackett. That resolution passed the legislatures. Therefore, the UP School District was born. 3 villages, Akiak, Tuliksak, Akachuk. Today, the state of Alaska, last 2 years, experienced deficit funding. And we were very worried, and I believe all of Alaska. So we offered ourselves that this was an opportunity for us to be a part of the solution. And today we're working on to the word I can't remember, is contract, educational compacting with state of Alaska. We're now working with this in preparation. If we need the trust obligations of the United States, we need those funding to help us to preserve our language. We're losing it in some communities. We need to teach our young children our way of life. The 4 standing principles that I know: love, respect, help each other, work together. That's what our elders taught us, and our grandmothers and mothers from the inside of the womb. They talk to the child already. Give them our language, and especially to improve the behavior with these 4 principles. And they can walk in a classroom, be attentive, be ready to learn. We're very worried about alcoholism. We're worried about drugs. The most dangerous one is knocking doors on a community, like opioids. That's very concerned. With this legislation, or with this resolution before you, we thank you for your support to help us to restore those funding that will allow us to develop our curriculum hand in hand and work with state of Alaska and the U.S. government to preserve our language. The children would have this choice to live in their community not be failures, and they can have a choice to be anything they want, astronauts, doctors, lawyers, engineers, whatever they would shoot for. With this, the parents, the grandparents, community members, the whole village will support these
Okay,
young children.
thank you. Thank you for your comments. And what we're going to be voting on is if we vote to table this, then we'll do more research on it and move it ahead, but we won't act on it. And the reason we want to table it is because there was a resolution, as I said, in 2014 addressing the same thing. So before we move on with any discussion, I'd like to call a vote on the tabling motion, and that's if we're going to allow more discussion on this and move it to a vote. So remember, you're voting on if we're going to table this and address it at a later date, because it is not according to our policies, it is not an emergency resolution. It's something that is already in the works. So for the tabling motion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of the tabling motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? I forgot the word. Abstain? Not voting? The motion for tabling fails. So we will go on.
So I just wanted to say that if there was a resolution passed in 2014, that if there's a way that we can get a copy of it that goes to Alaska and be able to see what that resolution looks like. Because what happened when they pulled that funding, it meant that we had to have our children go into the public schooling, and we weren't able to educate our own children. And so I would like to see a copy of the 2014. And then I would also like NIEA to be able to come to Alaska and help us that are there so that we can get our funding back. And that would be my request.
Thank you. Any more comments on the resolution?
So Winter Allen speaking from Homer, Alaska, NEA Alaska, and NEA representative. In regards to the resolution presented in 2014, looking at the reports over the last 2 years, there doesn't seem to be a lot touched on regards to what facilitation has happened in regards to that resolution. So if it was already brought to you guys in the languages, what may be wanting to be relooked at, still looking at the reports, what has been done to facilitate this work? And then my other question kind of mirrors the fact what everybody else has brought up to. The schools in Alaska are owned by the state and the buildings are owned by the borough. So it doesn't allow the communities to be able to facilitate the cultural needs that are being asked for. The languages are being lost. Elders are not being invited into the school district, whether you're on the road system or whether you're in the Arctic or whether you're in the Lower Kuskokwim or in the Yukon. There's no consistency. There is a lot of outreach between the villages and there's a lot of communication, but there's a lot of placating. There's a lot of we talk to you and we bring you to the table, but then we do what we want after the fact. And this is where NIEA and NEA, for that matter, does have power to be able to speak up. And it is through the resolutions, and it is through the legislative actions that you guys are able to push. This can't be tabled.
Thank you.
Clinton Logison, Treasurer, Knights Indian Tribe. What's the rules for retiring an old resolution?
For what?
To retire an old resolution and then pass this one forward in its current form.
I think because it's been in existence, we'd have to research that. Unless Robin, she's been part of the board for the past only years, would know that.
I'd make a motion to retire it and then see where that goes.
Okay, just let me. This is Robin Butterfield. I'd just like to make a clarification. When we table a motion, that doesn't mean that NIEA is not going to take action on it.
As previously stated, we already have a resolution in support of the general issue, and I can ask Anna Wake to clarify the work that's already being done in cooperation with Lisa Murkowski. So NIEA is already working on the issue. Do you want to say just quickly more what we are doing? But any resolution that is not passed in the general session here, the board takes up. We don't disregard the resolution. If it's tabled, then the board then takes action later with more information to move forward with it. But Anna Wake?
Hi, thank you. Just real quickly, so what we've done since the resolution was previously passed is, as you all know, BIE funding is devastated, right? Across every appropriations bill, it's really been hit very, very hard. So for us to understand what moving schools back to BIE will look like, and we all agree with you that they should be there, we need to have an understanding of what the budget impact is going to be, what's the appropriations look going to be for all of the tribes that currently have BIE schools. Otherwise, by just suggesting that BIE goes back into Alaska, we'll be hurting all of the other tribes and schools that are currently in existence, and that shouldn't happen. So we need to make sure that we understand the overall budget impact and ask for an increased appropriations to make sure that everyone has the equitable schools that they need. So we've been working with Ms. Murkowski and her office to work on inserting language in the next appropriations bill that will request a study from BIE so that we know what the budget impact will be, so that we can ask for the accordingly increasing appropriations so that we can make that ask. I'm just concerned that if we don't, then we'll move forward with language that would unintentionally hurt the other schools as we're working on getting you back the trust responsibility that you need for your tribes and your schools.
It's intentionally hurting Alaska now. So I would make a motion to retire the old resolution 2014 what was it?
18.
18? No, the old one from 2014.
It's 2014, not 18. That's the one that's up right now.
Okay. So I'd make that motion, Clinton Logison.
Motion was made by
Clinton Logison, Kanaitze Indian Tribe.
and a second by Bernadine. Any other discussion?
I was just going to make a comment. My name is Willie Katsayoli. I'm a school board member for our district, and my tribe was one of the contractors for a school back in the same period of time that Chief Ivan's village did. I'm kind of disheartened by the previous comments about the money issue. It seems to me that we're not supporting my grandchildren and their generation, but it's more like a blood quantum deal, as I see it, because we're by tabling the other resolution, we're basically saying our Alaska Native children don't count. It's come down to that money issue again. And it seems to me we're assisting the federal government from not meeting their trust obligation to the Alaska Natives in our 7 generations to come. But I speak in favor of the motion to table the, to retire this past resolution and to accept this one that's on the table.
Okay, any more discussion?
Yeah, just one quick comment. I think it's really important to understand that as a national organization, we can't pit one tribal group over another. And I think the action that's already in play by the NIEA organization is to make sure we have the information to ask for more money so we aren't in a position of pitting one Native group over another. And so it's fine with me to use the more current resolution, so I'll speak in favor of that. But I just want all the members to know that NIEA is already on this issue and will continue to be following it up. So we aren't neglecting our brothers and sisters in Alaska. But we also are not neglecting the other tribes that are dependent upon the resources of the Department of Interior.
Any further discussion?
Just kind of a point of clarification. So kind of taking what I said in regards to the fact that this needs to be addressed and then looking at the language between the two, the difference here between 2014-18 and the 2018, whatever it says, is the fact that in regards to the appropriations, there isn't a line in the new resolution addressing the appropriation issues, and what we're asking for is funding. We're not just asking for advocacy or for their presence, what we want is their money. So if we don't have that in the resolution line, we're not helping to pursue our mission. So I don't want anybody to feel like I'm being misleading in what I'm trying to push, because I'm definitely trying to advocate for the schools that are on and off the road system in Alaska, but looking at the language and being familiar with the litigation process, what we're asking for is their money. And so the line there in regards to the appropriations is what the power pusher is. So I support the idea of referring this to committee, and I understand that the words you're using here are tabling it, but it sounds passive. So I would rather say that we're going to refer it to committee so that it's brought to the board at the next board meeting, and this can be a continued conversation.
Any other discussion? Secretary, more discussion?
There's just a point of order, though, that the motion on the floor was to revert back to to remove the older resolution. Okay,
Any amendments
we
need to
need
be,
the maker of the motion to rescind that motion before we can.
plus the second needs to rescind if they're,
Correct.
so would the maker of the motion speak to that?
I disagree. I think that Alaska children are being used as leverage, and I understand we need to talk about it and look at it as if it's money, but we need to look at it as it's our children. And if this is happening in other communities, there is tribes being put above other ones, and I just think that we need to work together on this and try and figure out a path through it, and not just expect Murkowski to do something. I think recently she's, done some things by adding rider bills that degrade the sovereignty of Alaska. So there's some questions there, because we have corporate that are considered tribal organizations, and then we have tribes that have the sovereignty. And so there's some confusion about who's advocating for what, and when it does come to appropriations, Alaska children should not be used as leverage. And that's my feeling, and I'm standing with the motion to rescind this and pass the other one in its current form is where I'm at with it. Appreciate your time.
And the second agrees? Barbara, do you agree to that? No further discussion. Secretary, could you read clarify the motion? You quit saying no either. Read what was the motion? Please read it.
My understanding is that the motion is to rescind the previous 2014-8 resolution in favor of the current one.
-18.
Yeah, that's what I said.
2014-18.
No more discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Keep going.
Nay?
Nay.
Abstain? Not voting? Motion is defeated.
Yeah, are you a member? A voting member? Okay.
Thank you. I second. And I second.
A motion was made by
Bernadine Atchison.
Bernadine and second by,
Margaret,
to do what?
refer to the proper committee.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Oh, hold on. One more person wants it.
Can the maker of the motion add a timeline on there before the vote? Yeah, because otherwise, here we are, 2014 and 2018.
The maker of the motion have a request?
So, by January, we would like to have something before we go to the Hill.
By
January
By January
2019.
2019, specifically a date, the last day in January? Yes. Okay, and is that okay with the second?
Yes, that's fine.
Any more discussion? Question's been called. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Not voting? That motion carried. We're going to discuss this and get it done by January. That was fun. I like that discussion. Now, it is with utmost pleasure, to invite Dr. Jolene Bowman to provide her outgoing remarks as president of NIEA.
It's really hard to discuss the outgoing when you have love for Native education. My love for Native education began when growing up in a home that asked me what I wanted to be when I grow up and what were my plans to get there. That grew into my profession of cultivating academic and career mindsets for a sustainable future from Head Start through higher education. That led me to pursue my PhD, studying the persistent factors of Stockbridge-Muncie students within the higher ed system in Wisconsin. That led me to completing my PhD and thinking, now what? I don't want it to sit on a shelf. I want to do something because I was raised to serve, to learn, and to lead. So I put my hat in for the NIEA board. So I was elected in 2015. My peers elected me to secretary, because that's the best position. Everybody just loves that position. Then the next year, the following year, I was elected as president-elect. That was the same year I was also elected as vice president of Stockbridge-Muncie community. I was the first female in our tribe to ever be elected and serve as vice president. That was also the first year that our tribe had 3 officers: the president, Shannon Holsley, the treasurer, Janet Miller, and myself as vice president, serving our membership. So with that, I'd like to move on to my thank you. I'd like to thank my family, my friends, and my community for supporting me all the way through this journey. and also the 11 Wisconsin tribes within Wisconsin and the one seeking federal recognition. We support one another, just as NIEA is a family. Our Wisconsin tribes are a family, just like across the nation. Success in one tribe does not only serve that success of that tribal nation, but of all Indian country. So with that, then I'd like to go from there and thank the board. Previous board members and this board member, this last year's board members, working collectively and collaboratively from our respective areas is a difficult thing to do, but we did it. And we're doing it for our membership and for the organization. And I also would like to take this time and ask NIEA staff who are in this room to please stand and let us applaud you for the wonderful work you've done for this convention. Granted, our staff is not all here, but we cannot do this without them. You see, our staff are here 2 hours before you probably even get up to come to the convention. They are at work with their soldier hats on, working for you. They're in the trenches day in and day out doing the work. It is the staff that brings this convention and all the workshops that you've attended to light. So it's very, always if you see a staff member, please thank them for their relentless work and dedication to Native education. They are an important and essential element to this organization. I don't have a script, so I'm trying to think of my thoughts. So as we move forward, I guess I have one statement I'd like to leave with you, and that is to teach our children to be the future that we want to see in the world. You remember Gandhi? He said, "Be the future that you want to, or be." I can't even remember. I'm just up here, but that originated from Gandhi. But I put my own twist on it, and that is to teach our children to be the future we want to see in the world. We've seen that here. In the awards luncheon, we've seen it with Navajo Preparatory School. They had their youth here speaking the native language. I'm not sure if they thought that, but I thought it sounded pretty good and fluent. We also had the Hawaiian Immersion School, and they brought their youth here, and they were speaking fluently. It is so inspiration that we're already on the track to teach our children to be the future we want to see in the world, but I ask you to continue that path. There's more to teach, there's more to do, and I encourage you to continue on that path. Without further ado, it's my honor to introduce President-elect Robin Butterfield to come to the stage to be sworn in as the next president. Robin is a member of the Winnebago tribe of Nebraska and has Chippewa descent. Stop. Oh.
You didn't even stop. We just want to say, go, Jolene!
Well, thank you for that. I like to have fun in education, because education can, really have some dark sides to it, as we all have our own stories. But really, it's our humor. And when we sign our oath of office, that's going to be happening soon. That's part of it, is to have the humor, and that is so essential as we, are in the trenches doing our work that we do every day. So throughout the 45 years of experience in Native education, Robin has been a teacher, district administrator, and technical consultant in the Northwest. Robin is retired from the National Education Association, and she is currently writing for the National Indian Parent Center, which supports special education centers. Thank you for your past contributions to our board, and I look forward to following Robin's successes as she sets her direction for NIEA as our new president. So And then I'd like to remind everyone on the board and the new board members to come up front. We have continuing work to do with the photographer. So as I swear, let's see. The National Indian Education Association Board of Directors Oath of Office. Please raise your right hand. Invoking the blessing of our Creator, I, insert your name.
Invoking the blessing of our Creator, I, Robin Butterfield,
Do humbly accept the privileges and responsibility as a board member of the National Indian Education Association.
do humbly accept the privileges and responsibilities as a board member of the National Indian Education Association.
I hereby commit myself to the association's visions and goals.
I hereby commit myself to the association's visions and goals.
And to serve with wisdom, courage, humor, and respect in traditions of our Native ancestors.
And to serve with wisdom, courage, humor, and respect in the traditions of our Native ancestors.
In the spirit of unity, I embrace the NIEA membership and other tribal organizations.
In the spirit of unity, I embrace the NIEA membership and other tribal organizations.
In our work towards strengthening the education of Native people and the preservation of our Indian nations, so be it.
In the work towards strengthening the education of Native people and the preservation of our Indian nations, so be it.
Awesome. Congratulations, President Butterfield.
Thank you. Appreciate so much of this.
I think I'm done then.
Okay. So my next responsibility before I get to also induct our new board members is hopefully to follow the wonderful legacy that Jolene has set this year. She's been an awesome leader, fair, strong, focused, organized, and a great sense of humor, by the way. So I am now excited to announce as my first active president, the Diamond Prize winner of the NIEA Trade Show Passport. So where are our passports? Okay, so this lucky person will receive one complimentary registration to the 50th anniversary Convention and Trade Show in Minneapolis, valued at $650. Our winner can claim their prize by coming up here to the front. So the winner is, boy, we've really thinned out, so you might really get lucky here. Yikes, where is the name? Roanne Shabala? What? She just walked out? Somebody grab her. Okay. Okay, if it's okay, we can pause and then I can ask our incoming board members to enter the stage. So Brian, Sylvia, and where's, there you are. No problem. Okay, I'm going to just slow it down a little bit. So raise your right hand, please. Invoking the blessings of our Creator, I, and then state your name. Okay. Do humbly accept the privileges and responsibilities as a board member of the National Indian Education Association. I hereby commit myself to the association's vision and goals and to serve with wisdom, courage, humor, and respect in the traditions of our ancestors. In the spirit of unity, I embrace the NIEA membership and other tribal organizations in our work towards strengthening the education of Native people and the preservation of our Indian nations, so be it. Let's give them a round of applause. Okay, I think you can leave the stage now. Let's give our brand new board members another round of applause. Are we still waiting? Draw another one. Okay. Keep it moving. Sonia Scan? Is it SKAN? 0042? Passport number? Oh, back here? Oh, all right. Are you the person that we chased after in the first one? Yes. Oh, all right. Well, give her a round of applause. You got the Diamond Award. Very good. It's a good thing we caught you. Okay, I just have an opportunity to make a few remarks sort of starting off this next year. I am incredibly excited to be the president at this time in our organization. I want to thank everybody for their support. I want to thank the board, and I'm just thrilled with the new folks coming on and the good work that I know that we're going to be doing. I'm not sure how many of you know a little bit of history, but just down the road is Yale University. And I'm really sorry that there aren't more people in the audience, but there was a young man who graduated from Yale in 1910 as the first American Indian to graduate from that institution. And he went on to be the primary researcher and writer for the Merriam Report. How many of you know what the Merriam Report is? That Merriam Report then became the catalyst for creating the Indian Reorganization Act, which set into motion a lot of the legislation that has led to Native self-determination. And I think that it's a remarkable thing that this individual is actually compared to W.E.B. Du Bois, who Becky had mentioned. And his name is Dr. Henry Rocloud. Dr. Henry Rocloud is my grandfather. And he married Elizabeth Bender Rocloud, who was chosen American Mother of the Year in 1950 for all of her activist work for Native women. So I come by the charge of being involved in my communities from my grandparents to my parents and all of my aunts and uncles. But this is a really challenging time, and I was glad to hear Becky talk about some of, what we're seeing on the news every day. But I want you to raise your hands if you plan to vote in the midterm elections. I don't see every hand up there, but all right, stand. I want you to stand if you plan to vote in the midterm elections. You put your right foot out? Nope. Okay, now I want you to say, I'm going to vote in the midterm elections. All right, not only am I going to vote, but I'm going to get everyone I can to also vote. Together we can make a difference. All right, let's hear it. Okay, you can sit down. I'm going to try to keep my comments kind of short and sweet, but one of my favorite quotes is to always remember what Paulo Freire has written. And he said, "There's no such thing as a neutral educational process. Education either functions as an instrument which is used to facilitate the integration of the younger generation into the logic of the present system and bring about conformity to it, or it becomes the practice of freedom, the means by which men and women deal critically and creatively with reality and discover how to participate in the transformation of the world." And I think all of the time when we're talking about Indian education, we're talking about the transformation of the world. As a group that has been subjugated for decades, for now millennia, we have understood that notion of trying to be pressed into conformity to a system that doesn't fit us or our communities. So I think we are well aware of what that quote implies. So for the coming year, I always like to start with a clear focus. I do a lot of workshops with teachers, and to start off a presentation, I always want to remember, what are the learning targets? So I want you to think about, just for this 1 year, what are you individually going to be focused on? As educators and teachers, if we are teachers, we are always learners. And so from my perspective, I want to learn more about what's going on in a variety of local areas across the country. And I'm going to challenge each of you, beyond your own local community, if you're not involved in your state organization, if you don't have one, create one. But if you have one, participate in that. Those organizations are about bringing people together so that collectively we can make a difference. There's your state Indian Ed organization. There's your state teacher organization, if you're in that area of influence, and there's others, as well as your administrative groups and so forth. But I want you to challenge yourself, because you're all leaders, to take a more active and aggressive role in being part of something larger than your own community. Secondly, a learning target is to help all of us expand our native voice, whether it's at the local school board level, whether there's legislation going on in your state, and of course with NIEA as we go to our Hill Days in February, and you have those dates in your packet. Because we need to educate and re-educate a whole new group of legislators that are coming in at all levels. They need to hear what's going on and what matters to us. We have to get more involved. We have to get more involved. I am finally challenged just to learn and share more about what this organization is doing and how it can benefit, when I go back to Oregon. I always want to know what NIEA is doing for us, but I always tell everybody else that NIEA are us. This organization will flourish only if we contribute to it. So, along with learning targets, I always think we need to have our success targets. So when I do a workshop, I always want to put out there, it's sort of what Stephen Covey talks about in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You start with the end in mind. So if I think a year down the road, where do I want to be? How will I measure success in terms of my own participation? So I am at the presidential level, but each of you as members can be vital elements of this organization. So I hope that successful will also be for you helping us select a new, well-qualified executive director. We're going to put out the call, and we need every one of you to look for our best and brightest and dedicated practitioners out there. We need those people to help us at the national level. So not only that, but you also heard us mention that we have a couple of student board vacancies. We want our students involved, so please send us some names and interest from some of our students. They have to be full-time enrolled, and they have to have before them at least 2 years of service if they're going to fulfill a 2-year position on the board. We probably will stagger those positions, so we'll have one that can be a full-time student for 1 year, but the other will have to be for 2 years. So that's one success criteria, getting our well-qualified folks. Another one will be to help expand the membership of our organization. And as we see, even in our last general session, it's usually the one where everybody's rushing to catch a plane. But this has been the lowest attended convention in quite a while. NIEA needs our members to be involved. So we want to expand the numbers that are here. If everybody in our organization just brought 2 more people, that would triple the number of people we have as members. So that's a success criteria we can all work on. A third one is that we now have a brand new constitution and bylaws. And so we will be working on institutionalizing, this new document so that we can actually get more members actively involved in all of the things that we do as an organization. So a success criteria for me will be to coordinate a cohesive and committed NIEA board who will work collaborative through our committee structure. And in those committees, we want to have more members contributing. So we will be putting out calls for interested people who want to be on our committees. So look at our email alerts, sign up. It's just a matter of a few phone calls, and you